Hallo und herzlich willkommen. Mein Name ist Christiane Wirz. Ich bin Coach und Autorin aus Köln und weiß, wie sich etwas aus Krisen machen lässt. Heute freue ich mich sehr für meinen ersten Podcast im neuen Jahr, den ich aber noch im alten Jahr aufzeichnen werde, mit Corinne Maier zu sprechen, die ich seit einigen Jahren nicht mehr gesehen und gehört habe. Corinne, das verrate ich jetzt schon mal. Corinne Maier ist jemand, den auch einige hier in Deutschland kennen, eine Autorin, eine Psychoanalytikerin mittlerweile, und ein bisschen was kann sie jetzt auch erzählen, was sich in den letzten Jahren so entwickelt hat. Ich fange mal damit an, dass ich mit ihr in Kontakt war, damals, als ich noch für den SWR gearbeitet habe, als ich da festangestellt war. Für SWR 2 habe ich berichtet über ihr Buch Bonjour Paris. Das war ein Bestseller. Und da ging es darum, dass man manchmal den Spieß auch so ein bisschen umdrehen sollte, wenn man merkt, man ist irgendwo in der Sackgasse. Corinne ist Französin und ich glaube, es ist auch egal, ob mein Französisch schlechter ist als ihr Englisch oder wie auch immer, aber wir werden jetzt das Gespräch in Englisch führen. I switch to English. Corinne, I know that you understand more or less what I said. Just hello. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Corinne, since Bonjour Paris, a lot of things happened. Maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit what exactly did you do and how the last years have been for you.
I have written a couple of books since Bonjour Paris. That is my most famous book, I think. Most famous books. My English will come back. And I've written some others. For example, No Kid, that has been translated into German, and also a couple of scenarios for comic books that have been also translated into your language. I've written, books that haven't been translated into your language. And what I've done since then, I'm now a psychoanalyst. I was before, but I was more a beginner, I would say. I'm still a beginner in everything. So I'm just trying to find something coherent to explain. So I hope I'm still a beginner in everything, because I like to tackle, I think, I'm wondering if the word is correct in English. I like new subjects. I like to write about subjects I don't know about before. So it's more interesting, it's more challenging, and I try to make life fun and interesting. And it's more and more difficult. And it's now really, I think it's a fight to make life interesting and fun, because I think the sanitary situation has a lot of things. So it's life is difficult now. It's more and more difficult, but maybe we'll have some hope in the future. But I'm not sure.
I think you will find hope. As far as I know you, Corinne is a psychotherapist, a psychoanalyst in Brussels. And maybe there are a lot of subjects that we can talk about. We can talk about No Kids. We can talk about the book that you're writing, that you just wrote. It's, again, a subject connected to kids. But let's first start with the COVID situation. How is the actual situation in Belgium?
Now I'm in France, and it's more or less the same as in Belgium. So we have a sanitary pass, and it's a document that proves that you have been vaccinated, and if you are not, there are a lot of things that you cannot do. So you cannot go to movies, you cannot go to restaurants, You cannot go to libraries. In Belgium, you can go to libraries without the sanitary pass. In France, you cannot. So it depends. No, I'm laughing because I think it's so absurd. For example, in the metro in Paris, the metro is crowded as always. You don't need anything. But if you go to the small library that is just there outside, you just cannot go inside to read books because you don't have the pass. So it's just absurd. We live in something that is completely absurd. And it's nice to have good friends that share your ideas, even though I think I do what society expects from me, because in fact we spend our lives it's understandable that society expects us to do a lot of things. So we do it. But what I have the right to... we still have the right not to believe in it. And so I get vaccinated. I've had my third dose. So I'm really a hero of the COVID. I've had my third dose and I wanted to have it quickly because if you don't, in France, for example, your pass will be deactivated in January if you don't do it. So you are eager to be sure that you will be able to travel, to take a plane or to take a train, to go to a restaurant or to go to a bar with friends, for example. And so I did everything. I'm really, but in fact, I find it totally absurd. And when I say that to people, sometimes they are shocked because they see me laughing. I think it's really absurd. And some people expect you not only to do what is more or less compulsory, but to believe in it. And I just don't. That's why I'm laughing. So the situation is bad, but we still try to laugh.
I mean, you're a therapist. For me, I'm also trying to laugh sometimes in this situation right now because the situation is not really funny, but I think that it's a kind of way to deal emotionally with all this incredible stress that is thrown upon you and all the things you have to, you have to do and who don't really make sense, not accusing somebody, not accusing politicians that these that what they try to do and try to prevent and I don't know what makes sometimes no sense. But I don't want you to blame them, but partly, I mean, it helps. It's like catharsis or something. I mean, you're a writer too.
Well, yes, no, you are right. I feel like you do. I don't blame anybody. I'm just, it doesn't make sense. So it's interesting. But we still hope that sometime it will, at one point or another, it will be finished. Yeah. It's a strange experience, in fact. It's a strange experiment. And maybe it's a social experiment. I don't know what it will lead to. I am afraid that it will in fact never end. Maybe we'll have a fourth dose, fifth, and then maybe another illness, another virus, and we'll live like this for the end of the time. And it will be terrible. Let's not think about it.
Let's not think about it. So, Corinne, the situation in Belgium and in France is more or less the same, that a lot of self-employed people, artists, writers, filmmakers, I don't know what, painters, people who have a restaurant, a small one, a big one, tailors, I don't know what, all these little inventors, creative people in whatever way, they have a big problem too, huh?
Yes, especially those who are not in boxes, because some creators, some people who for example, run a restaurant. They are inside the structure, and I think for them it's easier because they can get the helps that are given. And I think it's great that they are given, but of course, some of us don't get the helps because we don't fit into boxes. So sometimes we get some help and sometimes we get nothing. So it's really a problem, yes, especially for people who write books, because you have to do a lot of things. You have to do files, and it's normal. I don't contest that, but you are not, what is asked from us is not exactly, we have the paper, but we can prove everything. It's all made, in fact, by people who get paid every month. So I think the whole world is thought by people who are paid every month.
Yeah.
And so they don't understand that there are people elsewhere who lives different lives and totally different expectation and totally different relationship to money. But we still have to pay every month things. So COVID was, for some of us, very, very hard. And so that's why we hope that it will be finished at one point.
Corinne, you used your crisis, and you're a very creative and curious person. So you try to...
Thank you.
Yes, I know.
Like your compliments.
I love your rebellious side. You told us that humor is one thing. Did you write more than usually or less?
During the COVID time?
Yes.
Maybe more, because I was so bored, in fact. So I had to write. I had to write a scenario. So I finished it very quickly because I had nothing else to do. And then, yes, I wrote another. I think it would be a book at one point. So I wrote it, even though it was quite difficult because I couldn't go in libraries. So I had, for this new project, I had to read a lot of books and to find a lot of documents, and I couldn't. Well, I could, but it was quite difficult. I had difficulties to go in a train and to go in libraries. And so it was a fight. In fact, I wasn't used to fight for reading. So it was quite new for me. I didn't know it was possible to, in a free world, supposedly free world, to have to fight to read books. So that was a discovery.
Yeah. Partly you try to get through with humor. Partly you don't think the situation is really funny when you have to fight for a book and for so many things that you thought that would be part of our Western democratic,
yes, but
whatever.
There are things that doesn't make sense and didn't make sense. For example, in France, I was in France, part of the sanitary crisis, and at one point they decided to have a curfew. So the curfew in France was 6 p.m. and generally it's the time when people take the aperitif. So it was, of course, it was devastating because we couldn't drink the aperitif because there was a curfew, and so generally you go out, or sometimes you just don't do it every day, but you go out to see friends and so on. So, so all people I know and myself also, we decided to take the aperitif at 4 p.m. So, so that's part of the. It's totally absurd. So you drunk at 4 p.m., which is very early in the day. It's all like this, and we had the force. No, in France it was really very funny. But it depends. It was terrible but funny at the same time. We have to fill in papers to so you have to give yourself the authorization to go out. So you had papers and forms, and you had to fill in the thing, and then you could go out. And in the evening, you had to go out with these papers, and we all did fake papers. And I had friends I know that gave me wrong, they me fake papers from the company. So it was great because it was very serious. I was a computer science expert. So it was a new lives open to me.
Oh my God.
No, I'm joking, but we have to laugh a little bit, otherwise it's boring.
Okay. But tell us a little bit about the new book. The book No Kid was in German too. Is there a connection between the No Kid book and this one? Because it deals, as far as I know, and you told me, with kids again.
Yes, there are connections. I think the new book is it's called in French Dehors les enfants, so it would make, I think, in English outside the children, and it's based on my personal experience with my son, because my son is now he's 25 and he had problems in the past. He was a difficult child and a difficult grown-up, and at one point he didn't want to leave the house. He didn't want to do anything, and it lasted maybe 2 years, and was devastated, because I thought he will stay there his whole life. It will be terrible. I will never be able to get rid of him. So I explained in the book how I pushed him out with different ways, some subtle and very rough. I try to, in this book, to give tips to parents who are fed up of their grown-up children who are stuck inside, because there are many of them, and more. There are millions of them in Europe, between 1 and 2 million in France, and it's really a problem. There are different words to describe them. The Japanese call them hikikomori. There is even a word in Chinese. The Anglo-Saxons call them the NEET. And I'm thinking of another example, the French, the Tanguy, because it's a famous film. I don't know if the German have a word for them. You know, the young people, the young who don't work, they don't study, and they don't train for anything. So it's just home, and they are just doing nothing. So is there a word in German for them? So maybe if there is not, maybe you have less of them.
Maybe it's this way. You know, I have no kids myself. I used to work for a German university, and also during these COVID lockdown times, and I had the impression that they might want to get out, but they are so afraid because of all these problems. And I also thought a lot of them have mental health problems right now. Like there are so many expectations from society and expectations they think they have to fulfill themselves. You know, they have to save the world. They are just a few. They are dying when they're 40. They have to be Harvard students with A grades from the morning till the evening, and still they have to, be socially engaged and, collect plastic waste and, be an activist and be at least as tough as Greta Thunberg and, all these things that partly it paralyzes them.
No, you are right. I deal with this in the book, but I think you are totally right. I think the expectations that society puts on them is too high. And I think it's also, there is a problem with the education that they receive, because the parents expect too much of them. Yes. And I think they are really they can't breathe because of that. It's quite difficult. And so I think parents spend too much time with them. We parents, I have spent too much time with my children. So of course, if you spend a lot of time with your child, with your children, you expect a lot. And then you put too much pressure, you put too much effort. In fact, you should just live your life and let the young be what he or she wants. But we as parents, we don't dare do this. We put too much pressures on ourselves. We feel too much guilty. So the book more or less deals with this kind of problems. But you're right, we expect too much. And we did too much, and this is all the same problem, in fact.
I know. I mean, I didn't read the book. There is a bestseller in German. I think it's 2 or 3 years ago. The title was, it still is, I think, das gewünschteste Wunschkind aller Zeiten, which means the most wanted, whatever, since all time loved and expected kid, you know, like everything, you know, it's the crown of everything of all of your existence that, you know, I don't know. So who can live with this, you know, like...
Exactly, yes. It's really too much.
So Corinne, let's come to the end and finish maybe with some funny things. So your son, did he leave?
Yes, he did. Yes, it's almost finished. He left because he went to study elsewhere. So he did some university, but elsewhere. So that's great relief. And he has almost finished. So maybe in a couple of months, I'll be totally free.
Okay, so then you will be free. And do you have plans in this times where all the plans are, I don't know,
No, I don't, because
poubelle.
Even now I don't see him so often. So I'm already free, in fact, but I'm still paying for his studies. So I hope that I'll have less to pay, and it will be really a relief for me, because, as we said, to be self-employed is quite difficult. So the less I have to pay, the less I have to earn. And then, as we say in Asterix, there is a famous quote of a Roman who says, "Ma vie ne sera plus qu'une longue orgie." So it's always quoted as people, they expect that in the future that they will be totally free and they will live, their whole life will be a great meal. In fact, an orgy is when you have plenty of food. And that's so. Maybe tomorrow it's like freedom. In fact, maybe tomorrow we'll be free, and then our lives will be a long banquet. Je ne sais pas si ça se dit en anglais, but you see what you mean.
I know. And Corinne, I mean, like, people say that the age of Aquarius already began, and that we will be free and independent and abundant, and maybe these things with COVID are just the birth pains. So hope to hear from you.
That. Hopefully, yeah. Yes, it will be great.
So thank you very much, Corinne, for...
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your question.
Did you have a publisher? Is the book already published? Can you repeat it maybe for people who like to read it in French?
Yes, it's called Dehors les enfants.
Dehors les enfants.
Yes.
Not alors les enfants.
Non, c'est dehors, outside.
Okay. Thank you very much, Corinne. Hope to...
Merci beaucoup. Et puis à bientôt.
À bientôt, Corinne. Dann wieder zurück auf Deutsch. Ich habe mich sehr gefreut, mit ihr zu sprechen. Wir haben uns auch damals für dieses Interview ein bisschen länger Zeit genommen. Und manchmal ist es auch so, wenn man Bücher von jemandem liest und ihn dann kennenlernt, dann hat man ihn schon ein bisschen besser gekannt vor dem ersten Gespräch. Ich hoffe, dass wir bald wieder einen interessanten Podcast-Gast haben werden. Dieser Podcast wird ja im Januar veröffentlicht. Das wird der erste sein. Wir starten also mit Heiterkeit und französischem Humor. Und wie es dann weitergeht, weiß ich im Moment noch nicht. Ich wünsche euch einen guten Start in das Jahr 2022 gehabt zu haben. Und auf bald. Bis dann. Macht's gut. Tschüss.